Hey everybody, Doug Walker here. No Nostalgia Critic this week, the reason being I'm on vacation. And the reason we decided to pick this week to do the vacation is because this would allow us to tie into another review we want to do on a movie being released. But you'll never guess what it is. Yeah, you can probably catch on. I just got back from a convention here, and I didn't want you guys to feel like, oh, you know, why have something, so this is something. These are my top 7 favorite anime movies. The reason why it's 7 and not 10 or 11 is because I actually haven't seen enough to make this list, like, you know, as... I'm not just talking about, like, movies like, oh, that's good, I like that. I love these movies, because there are some anime movies that are just so phenomenal and so incredible. And not to say a bunch of these others aren't, but these really hold a special place for me, and they're just really these amazing films that just really, really stick in my heart. And, you know, and I've seen a lot of anime shows as well that are just as good, but we're just sticking to movies today. And, before I talk about that, I should make a few things clear. Ghost in the Shell is not on here, and the reason for that is I saw it when I was very young, and I didn't get it. I was like super, super young. I didn't follow it. I didn't follow what was going on. So I need to rewatch that movie and see if it's actually as good as everybody says it is. I'm sure it is, but that's one of the reasons it's not on here. And then I have not seen The Girl Who Leapt Through Time or Summer Wars. Those are ones that everybody says are like some of the best ones. I have not seen them, so at some point I'll watch all those 3 films and get back to you about what I think about them, you know, like either a video or like my Facebook or something like that. And yeah, but these are the films that I absolutely adore. Like, these kind of almost help shape me in a sense. And just when I think of really great anime films, like, these are the ones that come into my mind. Not just for the technicals and the animation, but for what great stories and great characters they are. So, let's get going. Number 7 is Millennium Actress. This is a very... I haven't seen a film really like this. There's a lot of elements about it that are very abstract, very dreamlike, and it's kind of hard to explain. Actually, it's both very easy and very hard to explain. It's a film crew that's going in to interview this actress that's had this amazing life that spanned over years and years, and she's very old now, and they're just sort of getting her life story. But it's more than that. It's most movies, you know, they would do this and they would ask the questions, and then she would just tell the story, and they cut to flashbacks and they tell it from beginning to end, and you know, that'd be about it, and you hope it'd be a good life story. This one is like, it's almost like the memories that she has are blended together with the performances that she did and the movies that she did. So in her old age, she's kind of confusing the two. And because both the movies and her life are so interesting, the filmmakers kind of get into it too, and it kind of creates this strange kind of world of memory and subconscious and things you enjoy, things you feared, things tied in with your work, things tied in with your life, and they all kind of come together in this hodgepodge, and you have to just kind of not even figure out what's real and what's not, but just kind of accept it. Like, this is just what her mind is now. And it's such an intriguing journey that the filmmakers get sucked into it as well, like they're in the memories with her. And I adore that idea. I just think anything about, you know, sort of the subconscious and bringing the conscious or vice versa, I think it's just so intriguing. And I think with an anime to do that, well, this director does a lot of stuff like that. He also did like Perfect Blue and Paranoia Agent, so he really likes kind of dealing with this stuff. He did Paprika as well, which is about dreams. And I really think this is kind of like his masterwork with that, because it is not, again, it's not spoon-fed to you. It's not made easy. And while I was watching this film, I kept thinking like, oh, well, I got this figured out. Now I know what's going on and what's what. And And you don't, and you're not really supposed to. It's supposed to sort of offer you these choices that you can maybe say, oh, maybe that happened, or maybe you think this, but it's left open. But the choices they make to actually show you in terms of like who she is and her identity and her past and where it ties into the movie and how intertwined they really are, I think are very clever, and I think that's what separates it from a film where you just go, it's all abstract, you're not supposed to know what it means, or do you know what it means, here's my interpretation, because those kind of films, I mean, those kind of films are wonderful too, if done well. And it's hard to say what makes them done well, what makes them done poorly. You know, David Lynch usually does them well, Tarsem usually does not. So it's one of those things where I feel this film really kind of challenges you. You know, it doesn't just say, come on in, and because we're an animated film, we're gonna make this very easy for you to follow and visually interesting, you know, just a nice little eye candy for you and a simple story. They really, really challenge you with it. And I just adore the way it's done, and this guy's done a lot of great work, and, you know, in my opinion, this is his absolute best, or at least my personal favorite. So definitely go check it out if you haven't yet. Number 6 is The Wind Rises, and no, they're not all gonna be Miyazaki films on this, though there are a couple more. But I loved this film when it first came out, and I love it now as someone who really, really loves his work, even to a point where he's making a video on his day off. This is a kind of film I really identify with, and it's something where there's a bit of controversy around it. I've definitely heard people talk about, if you don't know, this is a true story about the man who built the fighter planes that attacked Pearl Harbor. But his big thing was that he just wanted to create. He wanted to change things. He wanted to change the world, and he was, you know, he was kind of this aviator. He made these planes, and they were these incredible designs. They just happened to be used for the wrong purpose. But he didn't really know, or to some extent even care that much, what they were used for. He just wanted to innovate. He wanted to create, and that's what this film focuses on. And it does show very clearly at the end, even him not knowing if he made the right choice. And I think there's something to, I feel like entertainers now especially, actually probably not, probably always, there's always this sense that that's what they want to do. They want to entertain, they want to act, they want to direct, they want to write, they want to sing, they want to do all these things, or just one of these things, something very simple, and then when you kind of get into the technicals of it, some people can pull it off okay, some don't. They get sucked into making these wrong choices that they don't think are going to affect anything, or maybe they're not even wrong choices, they're just choices that are taken by the mass public or something and having a bigger effect than they realize. And I think it kind of sounds like Miyazaki's kind of that person in many respects. Like, he just loves making things, he loves creating things, and the technicals of it, actually he's good at the technicals too. I don't know, I mean, like, Walt Disney was good at the technicals as well. There's so many people that can do sort of both the artistic and the business side. But there's a lot of people that are only business side, a lot of people that are only the artistic. I'm very much only the artistic. I'm terrible at business, so I don't handle that end. But it's one of those things where I've seen a lot of people, you know, just totally thrive on it, you know, and they let someone else do it, and it turns out great. And I've seen other people let someone else take it over, and it just completely crashes and burns. So I feel like this is one of those films where it's about the passion very much. It's about the inspiration. It's about kind of, lack of a better term, listening to your dreams, because that's literally what he does in this. He goes to bed and he listens to kind of what his dreams are telling him, because like his heroes and his subconscious are giving him advice and showing what he could be. And again, even at the very end, there's kind of this little bit of, you know, talking to his heroes like, you know, man, what have we done? Was this a good thing or a bad thing that we did? And I'm glad it's touched upon. It's not completely ignored, but that's clearly not the focus. The focus is that drive that can push a person and just how much it can overcome and how far it can push you in both the best way and in some respects the worst way. But they're mainly focusing on the positive. They're focusing on the innovation and the hard work and determination that this guy has. And as someone that also creates a lot of content and is so blessed to be doing this for a living, I really identify with it. I just really think the passion and the love of what he does, he just let that kind of become his life, and that just seems really inspiring, even though we know what it ultimately results in. But it's a fascinating film, and I really enjoy it, and it's, I think, close to 3 hours. And when we saw it, it wasn't until the very end that it was just like, our butts are starting to feel a little sore here, but by the time it was over, like, we couldn't believe that was 3 hours. We thought maybe 2, possibly 2.5, but then we looked at the watch, it's like, holy crap, because it just went by. It was just so entertaining and so enjoyable, and the characters were so likable. The only thing I didn't know about was the romance. That seemed very Disney. That almost seemed like, you know, knowing someone for 3 days, but I also don't know about culture, I don't know about time period, I don't know if this is kind of how it worked, or is that kind of the charm of it too, like it was young puppy love and they didn't know any better, or it just happened to work out, or it didn't. It's one of those things where I don't know. I kind of question the movie a little bit on that. But everything else in the film I just think is so well done, and you can just see Miyazaki's stamp all over it, not just in the animation, but in the absolute love of creating something. So definitely one of my favorites right there. Number 5 is Grave of the Fireflies. It's surprisingly not number 1. A lot of people put it as number 1 or number 2. But no, this one's a little lower. Not any fault of the film at all. It's a spectacular film. It's more just, I kind of like these others a little better, and, you know, again, they just kind of connect with me a little bit more. But this film, again, I was talking about movies that really challenge you, and this film, like, especially when I saw it, really challenged me. I really thought I was gonna get like a Saving Private Ryan or a Platoon, just war is hell, and those kind of films are fine and are very effective, but that's not what this was. This is very much a semi-inspired true story about a young man as a little sister, not even a young man, I mean really a boy, I mean he's not that old in this, and it's during World War II. Again, somehow it all ties together, I guess after the last one. The war almost doesn't matter in it. It's kind of not the focus. It could kind of be any tragic event. It could be a tsunami, it could be an earthquake, it could be, you know, just about anything. Makes its impact, you know, on these main characters. And it's about him and his little sister trying to live alone, and kind of the sin of pride and how it can really, really just push you so far. Even if you think you're doing it for a good cause or you're doing it for the best, it really can do this amazing damage. And I'm not giving anything away because it literally starts off showing that they're dead. So that's not a spoiler. They literally, the first minute of the film, it's like, they're dead. So that's not giving anything away. But it's showing kind of what led up to it. kind of the love between these two and how much they, you know, they really are, you know, a family, but also kind of the pain they're putting each other through. I mean, especially to the little sister. I mean, the boy to the little sister. And when I saw it, I wasn't ready to get it, because I think I was his age, you know, I was about, like, maybe 15, 16, something like that, and I was not ready to understand what the film was trying to tell me. But when I see it years later, it's something where now I understand that age a little better, and I think part of the film is saying that, you know, there is this pride issue when you're often that age. And I think I was going through that as well, so I wasn't ready to catch on. But now as an adult, I do catch on, and it is a very tough film to watch now because of it. Especially, I think it's very clever you start off knowing what's going to happen to the main characters at the very beginning. Usually that would give a lot away, but I think knowing that and watching these characters and knowing they're fine. They're just, you know, perfect little kids. They're just this, it's just kind of this age. And it's kind of, you know, this environment pushing this pride to go as far as it is. And I guess you could say it's a cautionary tale or even like an anti-war film, but it just kind of feels like, here's some stuff that happened, here's the effects that it had on them, and whether you want to kind of get whatever message you get out of it, you can, that's fine. It more felt to me like it just kind of wanted to show these two lives that, you know, were kind of these two beautiful lives, but they didn't always make the right choices and didn't always go the right direction. And it's not something where it's like, oh, this person's awful, this is just a terrible, terrible character. It's very much that, I think especially with the Japanese, I think with many America, just about anyone really. I mean, I don't even know if it's a cultural thing. There are just some people that can push themselves too far beyond what they're capable of. And we always say, that's great to push yourself beyond what you're capable of, and in many respects it is. But we have seen stories where people can push themselves to death or make choices where they should have backed off. They should have dropped the sword. They should have been humble. They should have said, okay, accept defeat. There's a really great scene in here where they find out that they've lost the war, and the boy just can't accept that. And that really says a lot about him. I think that says so much about the character, because he isn't just... I mean, it's understandable to be upset, but he isn't proud that the suffering is done and that the people, you know, can now sort of breathe again and he doesn't have to hide and stuff. I mean, it's like he just can't believe they lost. I mean, that incredible dishonor that is there. So I think it's something where you kind of see that age very much, but the passion of that age, but also the downside of where that passion can lead, and who it can really damage. So it's... But you also see, like, again, the love of that family and the love of that brother and sister, and how much, even though this is so hard what they're going through, I mean, they're really trying to help each other out, and you really feel the love between them. So it's again, a very challenging film, and I adore it for that. It just gets better and better every single time I see it. So, yeah, that's definitely one. Anytime I show it to an adult, it sort of takes them a bit, but they're like, wow, okay, like that, now that I let that sit, that's really good. And when you show it to a younger person, they often react like I do. They don't know what to think of it. I think that's good. I think that's actually very healthy, not to necessarily know how to react to this film and this idea. But I think it's still good to show at that young age, just to kind of, you know, drop these ideas in there, even if it's not fully being comprehended, you know, just something where it's in there and it's always kind of rattling around, so that years later you can look back and go, oh, that's what that was, or maybe that was kind of helping develop me more than I realized. So definitely a very, very powerful film. Number 4 is Wolf Children, and if you know anyone with kids or are someone with kids, this is a good movie to see. Not that it's an instructional guide or anything like that, it's just more, again, kind of like Grave of the Fireflies, just showing this experience, and it's technically like a supernatural experience. It's technically a werewolf movie, but it doesn't play like that at all. The setup is that this woman, falls in love with this young man who's half guy, half wolf, can turn into a wolf. They have a good night together, and she turns out to be pregnant, and they have 2 kids. He dies. Actually tied into kind of like his instinct as a wolf. This leads to his death. So she's left alone to raise these half-human, half-wolf children who can, you know, one minute look like kids, another minute look like wolves. Very much like Wolf's Rain. And that's about it. It's just her raising these kids and her life raising these kids with this very distinct, strange thing that she doesn't understand, because apparently it's never really happened before, at least not that she knows of. And trying to figure out what's right, what's wrong, what's the best way, what's the worst way, and seeing them develop. And good God, so many things with that idea, and I feel like it just takes advantage of everything that it can with that idea. It's not an action film, it's not, you know, trying to show off, you know, any cool fighting scenes or anything like that, or any cool transformations. It's very much about trying to raise kids, and in this case, you know, it's kids that have this... See, here's why I love it too. You can't really say disability, you can't really say anything's wrong or right, it's just they're different. And it's trying to utilize those differences to how it's going to help them best, and how it's going to help shape and discover their identity. And I think what makes that so good in this film and so surprising, again, without giving away too much, is that there's a very strong shift in the kids, like, as they grow up. You kind of see them growing up. In most films, when you see kids growing up, they're sort of set up, their characteristics are set up very, very young, and then they just kind of let them expand as they get older. And yeah, you would think that's how growing up works, but this film is very clever in that it kind of finds this one moment to suddenly give this very strong shift. Like, this incident happens to one of the kids, and it very quickly kind of transforms them a little bit, but you see very slowly how the transformation sort of leaves an impact on the kid and the rest of the family, and just that slow kind of change and what the kid is becoming, through both physically and in identity. And it was very much, you know, majority of the time, you know, this kid was this way, this kid was that way, and that's what we were getting. And then this sort of change happens, and people forget that happens a lot with kids, especially when they're hitting like their teen years. There's sort of this very strong change that happens. Some don't, some stay very similar. They just, you know, get smarter or add a few things, take away a few things. But with some, there can be just this super out of nowhere change that happens. And I never see that in movies. I always sort of see, you see where everything kind of comes from. It's this gradual evolving of the characters, of the kid growing up and stuff like that, but still kind of the same character, you know, just now they have to grow up and be tougher or understand responsibility, and that's fine, that's all good, and there's many kids that grow up that way, but we all know there's those kids who, when they grow older, hit teenhood or college or whatever, it's like, wow, something changed, like something just really snapped and made them very, very different. And I think this film is so clever to catch on that, and to show, again, where it leads and where it goes, and it's very much the journey of not just the kids, but the mother as well, and you feel the stress in this movie of just raising these kids. I think anyone that's raising kids, particularly if you're raising them on your own, I mean, you can just see the stress in this film and just how hair-pulling it is, but you also see the beautiful side and the incredible side, and just how phenomenal these children can be and how phenomenal the mother can be. And it really is just kind of a coming-of-age story, you know, and it's just so well done, and it's kind of very low-key. I mean, it can have very aggressive, even scary moments, but it's, for the most part, just watching this family develop and it's just, it's so good. And it's one of the more recent ones. Well, maybe I just saw it recently, but I saw it like a year ago, so it probably came out a few years before that. But yeah, the animation is beautiful, and the story is beautiful, and the characters are wonderful, and I loved watching them develop, and it is just such a good flick. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. Number 3 is Akira, or Akira. I never know the pronunciation, because I've seen several dubs of this movie, and a lot of them pronounce it differently. I still have a soft spot for what I call the Ninja Turtle dub, where half the characters sound like the Ninja Turtles, and the general sounds like George C. Scott. And it's kind of lame and silly, but there's also kind of this passion to it. It's like the first one I saw, so I'm getting sidetracked. So it's strange I'm putting this one so high after these like really emotional stories, because this is not a particularly emotional story. Not that there's no emotion in there, there is, and it's done very visually and stuff, but it's very much an action film. It's a sci-fi film. It's huge, gigantic, it's violent, it's gory, it's got weird creatures in it, and weird mutating things that crush people, and just people by the bucket loads die, and cities being destroyed and blown up and stuff like that. Kind of what you think of when you think of like a traditional anime. And I can't fully explain why I love it so much. Well, okay, all that stuff's great, but why do I love it more than these very emotional human stories? And I don't know, I don't want to say it's just the animation. I don't think that's it, even though the animation is phenomenal. It's done by one of like my top 3 or 4 favorite animation studios, what, TMS I think is what it's called, or TSM, oh, I'm forgetting it, I'll just look it up, look up who did Akira, but they're the same people that did like Animaniacs and Tiny Toons and Peter Pan and the Pirates, and they're still working, and they did Little Nemo in Slumberland, which is not a very good movie, but the animation's great. There is something about their style I just adore, and I especially adored it in like Tiny Toons and Animaniacs, because it was always the best animation. They had some good animation out there, but that was always the best. That's the one where you could like freeze the frame when somebody gets hit, and you would see like just one frame of this hilarious drawing at the impact, and then the next frame they're just gone or flat or something like that. And that's the kind of thing they would do. They would have just these amazing details and just these one frames in like all this action, all this craziness going on, that you would just pause and be like, look at that. What a phenomenal, just they snuck that in. They snuck in that little bit. It's gonna stay in the back of your head and you don't even know it's having this incredible impact on the motion and everything, but it is, and it's like that one frame that's always snuck in there. Phenomenal work. But that's kind of animation that's in here, but that's not the only thing. I think there's something about sort of this aggressive world that it created. It's kind of this mystery going on as well. It very much feels to me like this is kind of like the anime 2001. And what I mean by that is definitely not the style or tone, because again, 2001 doesn't have much action sequences or anything like that. They don't have many bikers, but sort of the same idea that like there's sort of this big leap in evolution or change or whatever you want to call it, and just the impact it's having, the way the human psyche has an impact on this giant change and what it's going to mean like for the world. You know, just this kid gets this incredible power, and what does that mean? Just a human boy, what's that going to amount to? What impact is that going to have? How are we as a species going to react to that boy? What are we going to do to him? And just the consequences of that. But there's also other kids that had this power in the past, and how it all kind of ties together, and it's just I don't know, it's aggressive and it's violent, but it's intriguing. Maybe that's the word. It's an intriguing movie. Every time I see it, I'm just always sucked into these characters. I always kind of feel like I'm watching it for a first time again. Every single time I put it on, there's never like, oh, I know what's gonna happen, or I've seen this scene a million times, or whatever. And even if I have, it always feels like I'm watching it for a first time. I always know it's either with the animation, or the character, or something in the story, something I haven't noticed before. And it's a fascinating movie, and it just really kind of sucks you in. And I don't know, it's hard to figure out what else to say about it. It's just this... It's beautifully surreal. It has a lot of stuff I love. Like, I love Terry Gilliam movies, so there's like a lot of these weird creatures in there, but I also love kind of these great action films. There's a lot of great action and science fiction. It's kind of like this hodgepodge of a lot of the things that I really like. That probably has a big part to do with it too. It's just all these really, really cool scenes. I like that you can have a movie where there's laser beams and people riding motorcycles going, oh, shooting, but you can have a scene where these little teddy bears are going by, and this giant monster teddy bear comes out, and they try to smash each other, and then he's in like a river of milk, and these giant Legos are coming. Like, it goes really surreal and weird too, and I just adore that. So, yeah, it's a great combination of pretty much everything I love in a lot of movies, and in a lot of animation. So, I love it, and I find it just so very, very interesting. Number 2 is the exact opposite of that. You can't get more opposite. It's Kiki's Delivery Service. A lot of people talk about My Neighbor Totoro being like their favorite Miyazaki film or their favorite Miyazaki children's film, and I get it, that's fine, I enjoy it as well. Kiki's mine. There is something about this idea, there's something about the animation, there's something about the environment that is just so relaxing and so beautiful and so simple. And I just love seeing what happens. This little witch that just leaves home, finds this town, goes, tries to live her life. That's it. That's the story, and I love that. There are so many films that feel they had to put a villain in, or they had to put, you know, this certain type of conflict in that we've seen a million times, or like a bully, or a race, or some sort of big event. And, you know, life is enough. You know, it just sometimes living your life is so challenging and so crazy that that's all you really need. Just good characters working off of each other and discovering things and growing up and evolving. And I think this film just does that so well, and they make the characters so likable, especially Kiki. She's just so friggin' adorable, and I just always want to know what she's gonna do, who she's gonna come across. You know, she comes across that artist in the woods, she comes across that geeky kid that makes these little flying bicycles and stuff, and it's just a life of somebody that happens to have this very strange thing, that she's a witch. And the world accepts that she's a witch. How many movies have that? It's always, oh, we don't know what this is, and we have to keep it a secret. Why? This is totally a movie that's like, no, they exist, let's embrace it. Let's figure out what it would be like if the world really had this and got over, you know, whatever, the initial shock or whatever, if there even is one. We don't know really the past of this. Maybe there's just always been witches, but it's something where there's this, you know, person that's not like everybody else, but there's a group of them and people understand it. You know, some people are still gonna sort of look at her a little differently, but they know who she is. They know what she is. And it's just her interaction with everybody. And it's just her flying this little broom. The flying scenes are amazing. It always feels like you're really flying with her, and there's no CG in it at all. There's not even really that many, like, moving shots or anything like that. It's just something about the angles that they get. Honestly, just in anime in general. I don't know how they figured it out, but there's something about when they do flight in animation, really when they do almost anything action-oriented in animation or motion, it really feels like it's moving. And this is long before CG. I would actually almost even argue that even though CG is wonderful in many animes, there's something about the still shots and the angles they had to get. They had to be a little bit more clever, and they had to get that precise angle and the precise shadows where it really looks like what's happening is happening. Like when there's an explosion and they get high up, you'll see like smoke come out, and you'll see like the shadow of the smoke, and you'll see it sort of reflect off of a bush or a wall or, you know, whatever, a window. And there's something about that those simple little things that somehow it feels much more real in like those still shots. So even though there's not many explosions in this at all, there's a blimp scene at the end, which actually I'm not the biggest fan of, but I guess you need some sort of climax. But just watching this kid live her life and just discover things and just fly around, make these deliveries, just make people happy who she comes across, but she's trying to figure out herself how to be happy. And, you know, she goes through this, you know, little sickness and stuff, and then she has to kind of get her powers back. There's a scene, for some reason, it makes me so emotional. I'm just like, God damn it, whenever I see this scene. And I'll give it away a little bit. I mean, you should see this movie if you haven't, but it's not a huge, like, story development or anything, but she's supposed to deliver, like, this, something that, like, this little girl's grandma or something has made. It's this dish that she puts a lot of effort into every single one of her birthdays, and she has someone deliver it. But something went wrong, or she lost the dish or something, so Kiki helps this grandma, this delightful grandma, just the nicest little lady, make another one. She's working so hard. We can't miss her birthday. We can't miss her birthday. And so she gets this dish made, and they wrap it up, and she flies it over, and there's the little girl's birthday party, and she kind of gives Kiki this look like, oh, who are you? And she's like, oh, I have this delivery, you know, this food that your grandma made. And she's like, oh, God, I really hate these things. All right, I'll sign for it. And she takes it like, oh, man, I just never, ever like these. And she slams the door. And, like, the flight back, Kiki's just flying back. It's raining. She just kind of has her head down. She just collapses on the bed. Never talks about it, never gets addressed, never brought up again, but by God, I get so pissed off. I get so pissed off whenever that little bitch just looks at that thing and is like, oh, I hate these things. I'm like, fuck you, you little brat. That just so gets me emotional, and it's like, this movie is getting me invested in what a little girl thinks of this dish that her grandma makes. How does it do that? Like, it just so lures you into this very relaxed, calm state that you're suddenly getting really invested in these tiny little emotions that, while small, still mean quite a bit, and they can really have an impact. I think by not bringing it back again, by not bringing back that grandma character, the little girl, or, you know, Kiki never even says out loud the impact it has on her. They just kind of show visually, because it's not like we're gonna put all our attention on this. The movie knows it's a small moment, but it still has an effect. And I love a film that can just find those small moments, and they can emphasize how important they are. Because they're always gonna happen. We're always gonna have a million small moments in our lives, but we're not always realizing they're having the impact that we realize they're having. Or maybe the internet is emphasizing even more those small moments, or maybe we're obsessing over those small moments, but regardless, it's something where it's very much showing one of these small moments and just letting it kind of sit with you, and it's just nothing but that. Oh, it's my phone ringing, sorry. It's in the other room. But, yeah, I just think those small moments just mean so much, and I adore how much love, how much passion, how much creativity, and how much patience this film has, that it doesn't go too over the top and too crazy, that they keep it very, very small and very quiet, but still so magical. Somehow it makes all the little things that she does, just the little flying around scenes, like she almost bumps into a building and she just kind of pushes it away with her leg. I mean, those little touches just feel so real and so genuine, and I just adore it. I just adore this movie. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. I know it's not for everyone. For a lot of people, it might be too slow or too boring, but I just think it's amazing, and I love watching it anytime.
Shiko 雲の白 明日を知ってたみたい
Number 1 is Spirited Away. Some of you already know that. Do I even need to explain? This is so many people's like favorite animes, and yeah, it's mine too. When I saw the trailer for it, it looked amazing. When I saw the movie, it came through all the way. I mean, just every scene is just so great. It's very much, you know, it's very much Alice in Wonderland. It's very much a character goes into strange world and trying to figure out the strange world, and you know, a little bit of a lesson, a little bit of life lessons going on, but it's mostly just her interacting with these strange creatures and these strange people, and it's big and it's scary and it's intimidating, but it's through all of that, they find the charm, they find the intrigue, they find the imagination. These are the films that we grew up with in the 80s as kids, like The Return to Oz or The Secret of Nims, the ones we're not seeing a ton of now, and I can't say, you know, kids' films now are awful, particularly the anime ones. I mean, we're getting really, really good stuff, and with very, very adult things in it, but yeah, there's something about that element of we just want to scare the shit out of you, but also fascinate you and take you in a world of imagination. I mean, that just was really big in the 80s, and we're just not getting that much of anymore. And I'm sure you know why. I mean, it's like people saying, we don't want to scare our kids, but we do get some. We definitely still get some in there, and they sneak in these scary little scenes in kids' films, but this is just one big scary scene, pretty much, for little kids. It's technically a children's movie, but it's so imaginative, and it's so intriguing, and it's so creative. And the characters are just so weird and so odd, but the main one is just so simple and so likable in what kind of a brat she is, but also kind of how innocent and afraid she is, and kind of how whiny she is. And this is one of those films where it's just, it could so easily go awry, but they don't. They just keep the focus on what's interesting in the movie, and that's this little girl's interaction with all these strange things, and it takes the time to be scary, but it also takes the time to be, you know, very calm, very quiet, very beautiful. One of my favorite scenes in all film, just when the train is taking the kid to, you know, just across the ocean, I guess, since the rain came down, and it's just this train on water and these little ghosts and strange creatures getting on and getting off, and it's just quiet, nothing is said, they're just sitting there, and the lighting is amazing, and it's just mood. It's just this incredible mood throughout the whole thing, and that's what I get out of this movie. I get this mood, I get these feelings. I always say, like, you know, when people ask, you know, like, people know I have a really bad memory, and they're always like, you know, do you remember specifics about what happened in the past? I said, no, but I remember how I feel about them. And maybe that's why I really relate to these films that don't always have to explain everything or are super, super talky. They can just kind of let the experience sit with you. They can just kind of let the feelings sink in. You know, and it doesn't always have to be the feelings of a story. It can be the feelings of, like, a sunset or a train ride. And I feel like this movie it's a good balance of that, because they'll have these quiet moments, but then they'll have a lot of insanity too. They'll have all these things just being thrown at you constantly and just non-stop, but it knows how to balance it out, where it can have suddenly these very simple moments or these very quiet moments. They can have characters that are very, very scary, and then characters that are very, very kind and charming. But there is definitely kind of this intimidation going through the majority of it that I think is what keeps a kid invested. I think is what keeps an adult invested as well. There has to be that element of, like, you could die at any moment, or you could get found out, or you could get caught, or something terrible could happen to you. And I think you need that, and that's why I think you need that fear in kids' movies still. I think that's sort of the investment, and I think it also helps in developing them, you know, sort of grow up and see that, you know, you can tackle these things, you can get through these things. And that's very much what this movie is. It's this little kid trying to get through these really tough, insane moments in this tough, insane world, when at the beginning she was just afraid of moving to a new place, or she just didn't want to go see anything, and she was kind of a whiny little kid. And you see her just get through all this stuff. And it's just so masterfully done. The music is incredible, the characters are incredible, the animation phenomenal, I mean just friggin' phenomenal. All these creatures, I mean any one of them you could just take out and you could look at and analyze, just look at the way this thing looks. I mean, how long did it take them to design this thing? And it's just any of the characters you could do that, any of these creatures. And it's just phenomenal. I don't even know what else to say about it. I don't even know what else I can say about it because everybody said it already. I mean, it's just this amazing movie. And more people, you know, will show it to their kids and scare the shit out of them, but they'll also kind of like being scared, you know? I mean, this is why kids like to go to haunted houses. They like horror movies too and stuff. And I think this is kind of a good introduction to that while also being very charming and very interesting and very creative and very whimsical. It's just a whimsical movie. It's a magical, whimsical movie. When I think of something that's just gonna take me to a new world, I mean a place I haven't been before, and I'm both excited and terrified of it at the same time. It's like, this is that movie. And it's just, love it. Just love it, love it, love it so much. I can't even think about what else to say about it. Just so perfect. Such a perfect film. So, guys, that's about it. Next week, I will do another Nostalgia Critic. We'll get right back on track. And I hope you enjoyed this list, and I will see you later. Take care.